Welcome back to our third piece on sort of knife stuff. On one of the earlier videos I talked about sort of how I used my on guard position, kept my circles tight, and as much as possible kept the point towards the opponent. And this is now sort of more, a little bit explanatory value of why I do that. The core technique is pretty straightforward. If I'm knife dueling here, the last technique was, sort of weapon centric. I can thrust, I can slash and thrust. And that's all about this one. Obviously we have two hands, we have the third hand or live hand over here, and a lot of times I will go from this really deep here, and then I will pin and trap or block and jam with my left hand. And that takes more timing to do than just sort of obviously keeping the weapon in front of you, but it guarantees or makes it likely that you immobilize the other person's weapon, and that's a good thing. So one of the ways that I tend to set that up is I want to make, and not that it not happen to me, is I keep the point towards the opponent. I don't want to chamber here really big, and I certainly, this will happen a lot on sort of, from my karate days, a back fist, okay? Guys who do this long back cut this way here, or guys who will be deeply chambered this way, or people who will be deeply chambered this way. It kind of doesn't matter. Anytime you're at one of these positions, it makes you vulnerable to being jammed, because this is travel time. It gives you lots of power because it's coming from farther away, but it's a knife, quite frankly, and it doesn't need that much power. It doesn't mean that people aren't going to do it, and if we look at real world situations, these are exactly the kind of attacks that happen. So you have to be ready for that power. And this is where these things sort of translate over, especially this one and this one, not so much this one, though obviously it's out there. So again, for my on guard, I want to keep that tight, small circle as I move around. Sometimes I'll come up, I cut away, I'll clear. Now it's going to give me some options, but usually on my on guard, I want to keep this pointed towards the other person. Okay, so that first technique of jam and trap can be a defensive one. Other person thrusts at you or cuts at you. I'm just going to set this up as a thrust, right? I either timing, slap, and thrust, right? It can be in the arm, it can be in the head, depending on range, whatever. But that's pretty advanced timing, right? To defensively take, redirect, and hit the other guy, that takes a lot of training, and so it's not something that you'd expect someone in their first, 6 months to be able to do, unless the other guy's just really giving you their telegraph on that one. So, or if I'm going to do it on this side here, right? Usually inward parry on this side, and usually you'd be here or, anyway. Let me get to my other side here, and I'm going to pull out a little bit more evenly. Maybe that fighter lets their hand go, or I'm getting just a little bit of a telegraph off of that one. If I'm going to do this defensively, right? And he's thrusting at me here, parry, and return. Against a good fighter, I'm very seldom going to get the opportunity to jam that. They're not going to give that to me very often. So this technique to me, against good fighters, assuming they give me that tell, right, are big chambers, big chambers, big chambers, big chambers as they come back. And those are allowing me spots to come in and trap with this offhand, okay? So again, and I can't really demonstrate it on, my stick here, but so if I'm here and this is a high line, right, I want to jam and thrust. It's a low line, and that would be from, user's viewpoint. I want to jam and thrust, and backhand would be jam and thrust as we're coming in. All of the non-telegraphic principles that we talk about using with a knife come into play with this one. If I go, I'm going to get hit, right? That's just going to happen. A good fighter's not going to give that to me. So jam and thrust. Let this be the non-telegraphic hand as it comes in, as you come in there, right here, bop, 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 here, bop. I'm gonna, because I can't do it with a partner, I'm gonna try to find footage of me using this, in sparring about getting this jam. I think I've got examples of most of these, but again, let this one come through and jam here, jam, jam, okay? And a lot of times that'll be, ugh, jam. I don't necessarily have to grab that guy's hand, okay? A lot of times I'll hit them with my forearm, right? Stopping that downward descending here as I thrust under. I'll jam into here, slam, and then if I don't do anything, you know, this thing isn't a lightsaber, so this guy's arm's gonna stop and it's gonna come up in. I'm gonna jam, thrust, and I'm gonna make sure I cover that and go in, you know, before I go into tapping for there, watching on that backhand line as well. Again, without partners here, it's kind of hard to demo this one live, so I'm gonna try to find some sparring footage. We'll pen that on the end. So, until next week.
Great fight.
Right.